Meiosis, which is part of GCSE and iGCSE Biology. Now, meiosis can be quite often confused with mitosis. Mitosis is for diploid, so diploid cells. So this means they have 46 chromosomes in 23 pairs. And fundamentally, meiosis is completely different. It consists of haploid cells with half the chromosomes with 23 chromosomes, no pairs. Okay. I'll compare the difference between mitosis and meiosis in just a second. Just so you know the difference between haploid and diploid cells, there's a really easy way to remember the difference. Haploid cells have half the chromosomes as diploid cells, which have double the chromosomes in pairs. That's the key point that you need to know for your GCSEs. Alright, let's take a look at the difference between mitosis and meiosis. Alright, I'll explain meiosis, what it is, in just a second after explaining just a few fundamental differences between the two. Mitosis, as aforementioned, occurs in diploid cells. So 46 chromosomes with 23 pairs. Meiosis occurs in haploid cells with half the chromosomes. So 23 chromosomes, no pairs. Right? Diploid and haploid cells. Mitosis, it creates identical copies. Watch my video on mitosis if you haven't done it. It creates two identical copies of the parent gene. Two identical, basically. Two identical genes are created. Meiosis creates 4 genetically different genes. That's a key point. 4 genetically different sister cells. It creates 4. You might wonder how 4 is created from just 1, and we'll explain that in just now. So how exactly does meiosis work? Well, meiosis can be quite a bit confusing, right? But if you understand mitosis, meiosis is quite similar. Meiosis basically has so it's a type of cell division that produces gametes, right? So we're gonna have gametes. So gametes is basically a fancy term for sex cells, such as sperm and egg cells. So it's just a fancy term for sperm and egg cells. Sperm, remember, is from the man, and egg is from the woman. So gametes. Meiosis produces gametes. Okay, that's the fundamental you need to know. Meiosis produces gametes, which are also called sex cells. How exactly does it happen? Well, in the previous video, you'll know that most cells within our body are diploid cells. This means that most cells within our body have 46 chromosomes with 23 pairs, right? With 1 coming from the mom and 1 coming from the dad, and this will make 1 pair, and we're going to have 23 of these. Then gametes, basically sperm and egg. I'll try to draw a rough image. Sperm and egg combine together to make 1, right? So if the sperm and the egg both have 46 chromosomes, that's going to create 92 chromosomes in the baby that's produced, which would not be what we want, right? We want 46 chromosomes with 23 pairs. So what we have instead is we have the egg cell having 23 chromosomes in total with no pairs, and the sperm cell will also have 23 chromosomes with no pairs. And the two can combine to make 46 chromosomes with 23 pairs in our fetus, the baby. That's how it roughly works. Then how exactly does meiosis work then? Well, both mitosis and meiosis begin with diploid cells. Mitosis produces diploid cells as well, but meiosis produces haploid cells, so half the cells. But how do you make 4 from just, okay, so diploid cells, 46 chromosomes, right? How do you get 4 23 chromosomes, 4 cells with 23 chromosomes in total out of just this? Well, it's very similar to what we did with mitosis. We just make replicates. We make duplicates of the original. So if we had our original diploid cell, right? 1 coming from the mom, this is called the maternal. The chromosome, coming from the mom is called the maternal, and the chromosome coming from the dad is called the paternal. And we're gonna have 23 of these pairs in our diploid cell, right? Well, what happens now is this essentially, we're going to make copies, right? So if you know mitosis, we make X-shaped copies. And that's exactly what we do again. We make X-shaped copies of both the paternal and the maternal genes. And we do that for all 23 pairs. So eventually, we're going to end up with 23 of these X-shaped pairs, right? By 23 X-shaped pairs, 23 X-shaped pairs, we're going to have 46 X's in total. This is basically a chromosome. But this can, remember, it can split in half to make 2 new chromosomes. And then what happens is, if this is the nucleus of the cell, I only drew 2 pairs of chromosomes here, but imagine we have 23 of these rows. What happens is they get pulled. It's a key point, all right? They get pulled to the sides, to the ends, to the poles of the nucleus, right? The chromosomes are pulled apart. And eventually what's going to happen is this is going to split in half. The cell is going to split in half into 2 new cells with 23 of these X shapes. But it won't be pairs anymore because one pair will go to the right and the other pair will go to the left, creating 2 new cells. But we said we create 4 cells, right? So this will this will split apart again. So what happens is the chromosomes in this, let me get to a new slide. We had 2 new chromosomes formed, right? Sorry, 2 new cells formed, right? And if we have 23 of these in each cell, well, this can split itself again. So in one cell, the chromosome X shapes will split to the sides. In this one too, the chromosomes will split to the sides. And then this can split again to form 4 new cells, each with 23 individual chromosomes within them. And the key point is that they have no pairs. It's just single chromosomes with no pairs. That's the key point. But we said that these chromosomes are all genetically different, right? All genetically different to each other. How exactly did that happen? Well, if I go back here, we're going to have chromosomes from the mom, so the maternal ones. And this will be the duplicate of the maternal. I'm going to have chromosomes from the dad, right? And the right side one, the right arm, sorry, will be the duplicate of the dad's one. If this splits in half, we're only going to get the mom's one on one cell, and we're all going to get the dad's one on the other cell, right? That's not going to be really genetically diverse, is it? It's just going to have one type of cell from one parent. So what happens is it's completely randomly arranged. What I mean by that is one could have red and blue, so red showing maternal and one from paternal. The other one could have maternal and paternal, so on and so forth. It's just completely randomly arranged. And another cell within the same person going through meiosis, well, they could have, in chromosome 1, they could have the paternal one on the left and the maternal one on the right. The point is that this arrangement of maternal and paternal is completely random, so that it ensures that the genetics will be completely different. So if this is maternal, and this is maternal, this is maternal, it's going to all have randomly arranged different orders of chromosomes, all ensuring genetic diversity. But you might have noticed, this one is a replicate of the maternal one, right? If this splits in half, well, then that's just going to create 2 identical copies between this one and this one, right? This one and this one will be different, but in between this one and this one, wouldn't they be the same because one's an identical copy of the other? You would think that, but in the process of doing so, when one arm is a duplicate of the other one, right? Small changes happen along the way that cause minor differences between each of the arms, eventually leading to genetically different chromosomes, genetically different cells. All right? So each cell has 23 pairs. So we're going to get four cells are created from one diploid cell, right? So now we have 4 haploid cells. Haploid cells, each with 23 chromosomes and no pairs created. And the haploid cells from the mother will go to form egg cells. And if meiosis is happening in a man, this will go to form sperm cells. And the key thing is that this meiosis only occurs in sexual organs because it's only required to produce egg and sperm cells, right? So it's going to happen in the testes. It doesn't happen in, say, our legs or our hands. It only happens in our sexual organs, reproductive organs like our testes and our ovaries that need to produce these gametes. And then these will pair up, and so the egg and sperms will pair up to create a baby eventually in the future. And then once the 23 chromosomes from the mom and 23 from the dad pair up, right? And we get 46 diploid cell this time, not haploid. Well, then this will now go through mitosis because mitosis is with diploid cells, right? So this will continue to divide identical copies, eventually growing us into a fully grown human. That's how we grow. The individual cells don't get larger, the cells grow in number. Okay, let's just summarize quickly the difference between mitosis and meiosis one last time, just so that it's completely clear and engraved to the back of our heads. Mitosis, it starts with a diploid cell, and that's the same for both mitosis and meiosis. Mitosis ends with 2 identical copies of diploid cells. Meiosis ends with 4 haploid cells, all genetically different, right? And this is identical. And number of cells made creates 2 and creates 4. Also, the number of chromosomes in daughter cells, because it's diploid, it's going to have 46 with 23 pairs. And in meiosis, it's going to be 23 with no pairs. And we already mentioned identical and genetically different, so non-identical offspring is made. Thanks for watching this video on meiosis. See you guys in the next one.